In the realm of gaming, it is no secret that FromSoft games are probably some of the most difficult games to beat in general. Each and every game from the Dark Souls series to Elden Ring and Sekiro each boast a long list of challenging bosses and encounters that would make even the most seasoned of gaming veterans shudder. While many of these challenges are usually situated around boss fights, there are other aspects of these games that become not only extremely difficult but also maddeningly tedious. I am of course referencing the achievements and trophies that each of these games has that make the experiences of maximum completion even more of a headache than the base games ever were. Over the course of my gaming career, I have done the seemingly impossible and I have actually platinumed every major FromSoft title released since Dark Souls 1. These games include the Demon Souls remake, the Dark Souls trilogy, Elden Ring, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Now before you applaud, I must confess that I do not recommend doing this if you value your sanity. Attaining the platinum of each game required hundreds of hours, multiple playthroughs, and maybe even some years off of my life. I'm not sure. For those who may be wanting to tread down this perilous path, I must warn you that many of these trophies are extremely difficult. However, if you must, I would like to shed some light on what in my opinion are the most difficult trophies to acquire in each of these games. Spoiler warning ahead for some boss fights and encounters. Let's start with the easiest of the most difficult trophies at number 7, which is hands down the Lord of Frenzied Flame trophy from Elden Ring. This trophy only requires that you complete the bad ending of the Elden Ring campaign, and what makes this the hardest trophy in the game is primarily the fact that many of the interactions needed to complete this are quite hidden. For example, in order to complete the quest, you need to find a hidden area inside of a well, and then traverse a sewer maze until you find another hidden area behind a boss, which then leads you to one of the most frustrating jumping puzzles in gaming history. But aside from finding this area, all you need to do after the fact is complete the campaign and the trophy will pop. Simple enough, but it can still be a pain if you're playing without the help of any guides. Like most FromSoft games, I recommend having a backup save to the cloud prior to completing any of these titles, as most of the games have trophies that require multiple playthroughs and ending completions. Next at number 6 we have the Sage's trophy, or find all the magic spells from the Demon Souls remake. Trophies like this are notorious across all Souls-like titles, and there are two reasons in particular as to why this is the most difficult trophy in Demon Souls. The first reason is you have to find one of the vendors known as Yuria the Witch, and not only is she very hidden, but some of the spells that she sells require various boss souls, some of which can only be obtained by finishing the game a certain way. So essentially, on top of having to complete a pretty extensive hidden quest, you also have to complete this game multiple times in order to exhaust your inventory, all the while making sure that you don't miss any other spells found out in the world or from other vendors. Coming in at number 5 we have the Master of Miracles trophy, or the Acquire All Miracles from Dark Souls 3. Much like the aforementioned Demon Souls trophy, this also requires that you find and purchase all of something in-game, and this time around it is the miracles. The reason I rank this trophy as more difficult than the Demon Souls trophy, despite the fact that they each require multiple playthroughs, is simply that I find Demon Souls a bit shorter and a bit easier. However, the idea is essentially the same. Many miracles require various boss souls and will require multiple playthroughs. However, Dark Souls 3 also has tomes that you need to find out in the world or via quests so that you can have access to certain miracles in the first place, making this a rather tedious endeavor. Next at number 4 we have the Knight's Honor trophy, or the Acquire All Rare Weapons from Dark Souls 1. This trophy is rather self-explanatory, being that you have to acquire all of the rare boss weapons in the game. This specific trophy I found annoying because, to be quite honest, I was having a very bad time with Ornstein and Smaug during each of my playthroughs, and getting past them presented quite the challenge for me personally. Many of these weapons required multiple boss souls as well, and in the case of 2 swords and a shield, you actually need to fight Great Grey Wolf Sif 3 separate times in order to purchase them, and being that I had accidentally used one of those up during my first playthrough, I had to complete almost 4 full playthroughs of this game back to back, which I do not recommend. At number 3 we have the Master of Hexes trophy, in which you have to learn all hexes from Dark Souls 2. Now at this point it's basically a broken record that trophies like this require multiple playthroughs due to boss soul requirements and such. However, Dark Souls 2 also had one of the hexes hidden behind a secret boss known as the Dark Lurker. For those who may be unaware, the Dark Lurker is a challenging boss that you can only fight after having upgraded the Pilgrims of Dark Covenant, so basically after grinding to level up said covenant and completing various rather difficult dungeons, you then have to face one of the more difficult bosses in the game just for one hex. If you haven't gathered, this is a very time-consuming trophy, and on top of the fact that Dark Souls 2 is my least favorite Souls game, it is safe to say that I did not have a very good time. Now number 2 and 1 were actually very tough to gauge, because while one trophy was much more difficult to achieve from a gameplay standpoint, the latter trophy involved one of the greatest time commitments of any trophy I have ever had the displeasure of completing. So what I did is I asked myself, what trophy would I muscle through again if someone offered me a monetary reward? And this is how I decided where to put these next 2 trophies on the list. So I decided that the number 2 spot belongs to the Yharnam Pthumerian Queen trophy, which requires you to defeat Yharnam Blood Queen of the Old Labyrinth from Bloodborne. What makes this trophy so difficult is not the actual boss fight itself, but rather the journey to even find her in the first place. Bloodborne has what are known as Chalice dungeons, and they are rather notorious among the Souls community as having some of the most difficult and challenging bosses within them. Not only this, but you will need to farm materials in-game in order to activate some of the chalices, which in itself can be a chore. Once you do farm enough materials to activate specific chalices, you will then have to make your way through the dungeons, encountering various enemies and bosses, and eventually you will have to face the queen herself. While she may not be the most challenging part of this trophy, getting to her was very frustrating and not something that I would do a second time. And lastly, at number 1, and the most annoying and difficult trophy in all the Souls/FromSoft games, goes to the Height of Technique trophy, which can be acquired by purchasing all skills in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This trophy is easily, without a doubt, the most tedious and time-consuming trophy that I have ever completed, and at the time of making this video, I have 65 platinum trophies under my belt. Of all the FromSoft games, this is one that doesn't require some ridiculous hidden boss or difficult encounter. No, this simply asks that you spend about a week straight farming enemies so that you can purchase all of the available skills in the game. Why FromSoft made some of these skills so expensive, I have no idea, but the time commitment needed to earn enough currency to complete this is absolutely ridiculous. The best part is when I saw this trophy on the list, I was like, oh cool, I can complete that in my first playthrough, no problem. And yeah, this was the last trophy I needed for the platinum by a large margin, and in my opinion takes the crown as the most difficult trophy in any FromSoft game to date. So there you have it, the worst trophies in each of the most popular FromSoft games. Taking the time to platinum each of these games was fun in its own right. Elden Ring in particular was a blast just because I was having so much fun just exploring and taking my time with the world. However, overall, especially in Dark Souls 2 and Sekiro, I was questioning whether or not it was worth it just because of the time commitment alone, not even including some of the boss difficulties. Needless to say, it was a challenging experience, and if this is something you are striving to achieve, this is my chance to tell you, good luck.